Keith Wallahan is the Liberal MP for Menzies. Good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Raf, thanks for having me.
If Labor's primary vote went up, why is everyone in the Liberal Party celebrating?
I think you've got to go back 12 months to the Aston by-election. That was quite a low point for our party here in Victoria. We had a two-party preferred swing of 6.3%. And then here we have, on a two-party preferred basis, a swing that's looking at about 3.6. There's postal votes to be counted, and they're sort of breaking a bit more our way. So it could get close to 4. That's a huge turnaround when you add those together in 12 months, and it's a very solid position for our party to move forward to the next federal election here in Victoria.
But it's deeply problematic, isn't it? If you can't, so a seat that is an hour from a big city, you're still thousands of votes behind. You've got, I don't know, a year to go. That's a sign of trouble, isn't it? Not a sign of promise?
Not at all. The context of this by-election is important. We only had this by-election because of the death of Peter Murphy, and we all grieve her loss. I served on that gambling committee with her and signed that report with her. I think that mattered. And I heard someone else, say that, well, this was the Labor Party, was Peter Murphy's party. It only seems fair that, that's that next person. Jodie Bellier is a member of that party, and I congratulate her on her victory.
12 interest rate rises, heaps of anger about inflation, not the best of political years last year for the government in some ways. If you can't win a seat, also without a prospect of the government losing government, because by-elections, this one wouldn't have mattered. If you can't win a seat in those circumstances, are you genuinely telling me you're happy?
I am. This is a first-term government. Australians are very generous to first-term governments. They give them a chance. What I've noticed in the parliament is that the Labor members are very good at the tactics of opposition, but they haven't quite made that transition to government. I think Australians know that, and they give a government a chance. They don't give them two chances, but we're still in that first term, so first-term swings matter.
Do you think... are you having the wrong conversation with voters if that is the result? If you're not winning a seat like Dunkley, does it mean you are talking about the things that matter to them?
I think we are, and the voters of Dunkley, I think, had a great choice on the weekend. I think Jodie was an excellent candidate and now a member, and Nathan Conroy was an outstanding candidate. And they both speak fondly of each other, and that matters. Nathan will almost certainly be our candidate at the next federal election.
I meant more the issues they had to prosecute,
Yeah, well, I think they both said that the number one issue was cost of living. They both said that. And that isn't just a talking point issue.
No, it's crucial.
We're seeing families, especially on average incomes, that are just living paycheck to paycheck.
Sure.
And we're looking at food prices going up even more, energy prices going up. And for those on a mortgage, there's some serious conversations happening around this city
thousands
right
extra
now.
every month. But that was one of the problems, wasn't it? Because the Liberal Party was screaming for months, you've got to do more, you've got to do more. Middle Australia's struggling, Middle Australia's struggling. And then when the government actually gives them, the best way to give people more money is to give people more money every fortnight across a tax year. When the government actually did that, you sort of ran silent and talking about immigration detention. Isn't that the problem, that you're not having the conversation that people are having at home?
I think some people will make that observation about, pivoting from one topic to the other. But when I listened to my colleagues speak, the number one issue was cost of living and how that
wasn't the number one
people.
issue in question time, was it? Like the number one thing that in that crucial first week of pre-poll was immigration detention every single day. Towards the end of last week, it was immigration detention. You sort of jumped too fast when Victoria Police arrested the wrong man. There was not every question in question time was about cost of living.
I think you're putting too much emphasis on the role of question time and what matters to normal Australians.
Doesn't everybody watch it every day?
No, they don't. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm sitting there, I can't hear what's being said because of all the yelling. So,
but it shows what you're focused on, doesn't it?
Well, you could make that observation, but through the parliament, it's not just question time. It's what we do before and after question time. I can tell you, Raf, that cost of living is the number one issue for me and my colleagues.
You've spoken about housing, that your party has to do something serious about housing to complete that conversation. Your party is not going to do anything on negative gearing or the capital gains discount that you get when you sell property. If you don't do those things, you can't change the situation on housing, can you?
Well, you're going straight to the granular detail of what to do.
Well, that's the only thing that makes a big difference.
Well, that's an observation. But the first thing is to recognise the problem that we have. I don't think everyone quite understands how bad this is.
Oh, I think people do.
Oh, I think they're starting to, and not everyone.
What do you mean by everyone? I mean, surely government,
I think there are
opposition, most people understand, don't they?
I think there are still many people in the community who still think paying those interest rates in the 1990s mean that buying a house then was a lot harder. I think when you do the maths, that buying a house today is unbelievably harder. That gap between average wages and the median house price has meant that the average household just cannot buy a house.
You've gone from 2 to 3, 4 times the average wage to 6, 7, 8 times the average wage to buy a house.
And then that assumes you've saved the deposit. Saving the deposit of 20% can take 12 to 17 years on an average wage. People are just giving up on the Australian dream of owning your own home.
Is it the only way to change that, to change the tax treatment of real estate?
It's a complex problem that involves 3 layers of government. The tax, of course, is very important at a federal level, but so is migration. If we have a disproportionate migration system, it puts pressure on housing. They're the main levers at a federal level. Planning at a state level and local council approvals also matter. They all have to be working together on the issue of home ownership.
So is the solution? Is the Liberal Party's solution to housing capping migration numbers?
There is no one solution to it, Raf. But I know that recognising the problem is a good first step. We need to get there, and then we move to the solutions. And having an open mind on all of the options available to us is important.
But no movement on negative gearing and capital gains, I assume.
Well, I'm not going to come here and announce a specific policy for my colleagues.
But that'd be a safe assumption, wouldn't it?
Well, you have to bring your colleagues with you. You have to bring your colleagues with you on a lot of issues, and that means doing the work, the homework on what will work.
Do you think the gambling ban is going to happen?
I don't know. I watched Peter Murphy conduct that inquiry, and you learn a lot, not just from your colleagues, but the other side as well. She was an amazing leader and recognised that is a significant problem, and I was proud to sign that report with her. I don't know. I think both parties are working through that process, but I think that report really put a flag in the sand for people to say, well, there's an objective for you to aim at.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.